What is up, guys? I'm Joey from awesomecameras.com, and this is going to be On a Roll number 3. If you didn't see number 1 or number 2 yet, On a Roll is a series where I go over an entire roll of film, start to finish, give you a look at every photo, and try to either teach you something. A lot of photos there is a good little teachable moment, either a mistake I've made or something I feel I did right and made the photograph better as far as technique or camera settings or whatever. There's a story behind every photo, so some photos they'll just have a cool story behind it I want to share, and just to generally show you all the photos that go into a whole roll of film as far as my thought process goes and what I choose to shoot and why I choose to shoot it, just to give you a glimpse into my shooting process, and maybe you can learn something from it. Hopefully it will help you, inspire you in some way, if at the very least just to get out and take more photos and explore your creative side in the photographic realm. So the roll I'm going over today is very special to me, hanging with some good friends, my girlfriend Janina. It just happened to be my birthday. My old friend Tyler Parker, his family has a house in San Diego. He was down there for the weekend and invited us down. Just happened to be on my birthday. So we took him up on it, went down there for the night, hung out, went surfing in the morning, hung out, had some beers, a little whiskey, and just had an all around great day with great people. The camera I'm using in this is my new favorite, and you've heard about it on the channel here. I love this camera. Every roll I put through it, I love it even more. It's the Leica R8. This whole roll was shot on the 35mm f2 Summicron R series lens, and the film I shot was new to me, first roll I've ever shot of this film, and it was Ilford Pan F. If you're not familiar, that is a 50 ISO film, so a slower film. I decided to try out a slow film with this camera because the shutter speeds go up to 1/8,000th of a second, and that really lets me open up my aperture even in brighter daylight conditions, and the slower film just lets me open it up even that much more. So in bright daylight, get down to f2. I think in some of these shots I was at f2, down in the 4 to 5.6 range, no problem in bright daylight. A lot of cameras don't have that fast a shutter speed, so you're stuck on a sunny day shooting at f8, f16, So that's one thing I really like about this camera as well. So let's just get into it. I didn't really know what to expect. Here's the first photo. We went to a brewery. I believe this is at a brewery called Pizza Port in San Diego. We sat down to have a beer, and we sat under this umbrella, and if you've been following my Instagram, every once in a while, and it's always on a Saturday, I do a thing, I hashtag Saturday Pattern Day, where I just post a picture of a pattern that I've taken a photo of, and I don't know, it's just something to keep my mind looking for patterns, knowing that I'm posting these on my Instagram from time to time. So it just gives me one more thing to kind of keep an eye out for, and it helps me, when you're out shooting, you don't know what to shoot. It's one of those things where if I see a cool pattern, I've been photographing them lately. Secondly, this is Janina and I, self-portrait in the window. I think these white papers from our food in the foreground threw off the exposure, and then this white on the left, that would have been the wood frame of the window, I think threw the light meter off quite a bit. But then the second one, I aimed up a little higher. There's less of that food wrapper in the foreground, and we got an all-around better exposure, and you can make out some details in our faces, more of what I was going for. If I had thought about it more thoroughly while I was shooting, I probably would have overexposed it another 2 stops or so with an exposure compensation to see more detail in our faces. Here's a close-up of Janina looking over at me. Stuff like this, especially close focus, I'm using a very wide open aperture. Shots like this, I'll tend to take more than one shot, and it serves me right here. You can see her eye is not quite in the greatest focus. Her cheek looks a little in focus, and definitely you can see on her hat, the brim of her hat in front of her face. So closer to me is where the focus is at. So my hunch was right. I did miss focus on this first shot of her. I told her to hang on, I'm gonna take one more shot, and actually got a little bit closer to her and just nailed the focus right on. You can see her eye is in perfect focus there, and that's generally what I try to do. Most people, I think, would try to do this. If someone's looking at you, if they're faced at an angle, you get the eye closest to you in focus, and that's what you're trying to focus on. Obviously, everyone has their own perspective on that. For me, that's what I tend to focus on, and most of the portraits that I see that I'm drawn to, that's where the focus is. So I definitely incorporate that into my personal shooting style. I'm super happy with this one, and it also just gives me a good idea of how close I can get with this 35mm lens. I'm still new to this camera. I'm still testing it out, the limitations and all that. So this is all a learning experience for me as I'm going through this roll. Hopefully it helps you out with some of your shooting technique if that's what you're trying to get out of this video. Moving on, another test of the close-up functions of this camera, a little pepper shaker. Pretty self-explanatory. It's just one of those things, you know, it was sitting there. I knew there was going to be some hard contrast because it's right in the sunlight on the light wood, shadow behind it, and I knew the lid was a little lighter than that panel behind it. And so I just wanted to shoot that, and it's a good close-up photo. Again, just helping me understand the limitations of this camera and the film and what they can and can't do. Taking photos like this, it really gives me a better idea of what these close-up photos are gonna look like, how the camera reacts to different lighting situations, etc. Here's one just looking up at the sky. This must have been when we were walking around. I just saw these umbrellas and the palm tree coming in at different angles. If I had to shoot this one again, if you look at the top left, it looks like there's another palm tree or something sticking in. I probably would have reframed it to try to get that out. Otherwise, I could just Photoshop that, no problem. I know a lot of purists would never Photoshop their analog images, but I'm definitely okay with it. Cut something out. If it's in your shot, you know, that's a quick fix in Photoshop. And personally, I don't think it ruins the integrity of a photograph if you cut something out like that. I know some people definitely have a different opinion of that, and I get it. But at the same time, I'm not a photojournalist. I'm not particularly telling a story of any significance with this photo. That would just be my interpretation of the image I'm trying to convey in my photograph. It's just an artsy-fartsy shot I took of some umbrellas and a palm tree that caught my eye, just to see how the camera would react. So I don't see a problem with photoshopping something like that out, personally, my opinion. Moving on. This is just a little alleyway. We got Janina here. She's a avid surfer, so we saw this sign, said Surf Check Alley, and I wanted to take a portrait of her in front of this sign. And I think it came out pretty great. I got a slightly different angle here. This one, she came out a little dark. I haven't doctored these at all, so this is just how I got the scans back from the lab, and these were developed and scanned by Dexter's Camera in Ventura, California, and I'm super happy with them. I think they came out really great. This one, I'm guessing, as opposed to the first one, got a little darker because of how light the background is down the alley, where you can see down the alley, you can see the sky is completely blown out, and I'm sure that my camera was trying to compensate for that. Next, we went into a nice dark bar to play some pool, and I decided to take another portrait of my beautiful lady. This one, maybe I should have used a little bit smaller aperture if possible. Just, it's really narrow, and I would have liked a little more depth of field focus in her face. So I snapped a couple more. This one, definitely out of focus. I moved in a little more. I think I knew that I missed focus on that one, so I snapped another one. Number 3, third time's a charm. There you go, right up close. This one, the contrast is getting to me a little bit. There's a window to my left. Obviously that's where the light's coming from, and the bar was super dark, so you can see a lot of contrast there from the light side of her face to the dark. I think it looks great. Just the highlights are a little blown out. I do wish that the highlights were toned down a little bit. I don't mind the shadows so much. I would have been just fine with a little more shadow as long as those highlights weren't so blown out. This is my buddy Tyler Parker. He was actually maybe the second guest on my podcast. If you remember those podcasts, that would have been probably 4 or 5 years ago now that I interviewed him for that. He's a photographer himself and shoots a lot of fashion and more editorial and lifestyle photography. Really great photographer and great all-around dude. Old friend of mine. This one I felt pretty confident about that I nailed it, and you can see I'm more sitting with the light behind me, the windows than behind me, shooting forward at him to where the light is more evenly across his face, not that side light you saw with. Next up, this is Brett. Brett I met actually that day, another friend of Tyler's who just happened to be there that day to hang out with us, and I'm glad he was. He's a great guy, and I just met him that day, but we've been in touch since and like become friends, so I just love when that happens. You know, you meet friends through friends that end up being really cool. And that tends to happen. When you hang with good people, they tend to also be surrounded with other good people. And so this guy was great. This is another case of two things. One, I was pretty sure I missed focus. And two, I didn't fully think out my composition on this photo. So it's a little fuzzy, a little soft on the focus. I do like his pose and everything for this, so I decided to take another one, and he obliged. And here it is. Check out the focus. If we zoom in on the eyes here, looking at it, much better focus, right on his eyes. You can see I moved the camera down and to the left a little bit. Got his whole arm in the photo, his hand hanging off the table, isn't cut off anymore, and just an all-around better photograph, and I'm really happy with this one. Another great portrait that I enjoy, that I'm proud of. So that's Brett, and let's keep on moving along. This is what happens when you hand your camera to somebody else to grab a photo. I don't remember exactly the circumstances here, but I think I handed the camera to one of them. I think the light, maybe I did change the camera to center focused or center weighted light meter, so that would have focused dead center on the window between Janina and I, and that's why we are so dark in these two photos. Here's a shot of us in the horizontal mirror there across from us, and we tried to take a group photo. Didn't exactly work out the way I planned. All right, after a couple beers, a couple drinks, we decided to go down to the beach, and that is where I asked Janina to hop up on this sand berm. Actually a really crowded day at the beach for March, middle of March. I decided to take a couple shots here of her on the beach. This film is pretty contrasty, crushes those blacks. If you look in the sand too, like her shadow in the sand, you can barely make out the detail in the sand there. So it definitely does crush the shadows quite a bit. So let's check out the next shot. I had her tilt her face up to get some sun on it. I love the composition on this one. She's just dead center, crowded beach. There's a lot going on. Another one I really like. And then I had her point her face up towards the sun. This is one of my go-to when I'm posing someone, even just for a casual portrait. I'll take a couple head on and I'll kind of always say, close your eyes and look up at the sun and just take it in. Just in general, that's something I do a lot with my photography when I'm taking portraits of people. I took this one and then I moved in for a close-up of the same thing, and this is just another photo that I love this photo. Like I'm gonna frame this one. That's what I would do with this photo. And for her, if you know Janina, this photo just screams Janina. She loves the beach, loves being in the sun. All around solid portrait, and I think that's important in a portrait, to really get a feel of that person and what they're like. And I think this photo just screams Janina. Going along with telling a story of your day and making a coherent series of photos, I felt this next one just fit right in. Beach day, barefoot at the beach. If I was gonna take a handful of photos out of this roll and tell a story with it, coherent story, I'd probably include this one. Just a good vibey photo. Shows we're at the beach, it's sunny, it looks warm. We got back in the car, saw Janina's sunglasses sitting on the dash. I saw her reflection in it, I could see my reflection in the other lens, and decided to go for this shot. And I like this photo. It's, you can see both of us in it. It's kind of cool, me with my camera and she's in it twice because of the curvature of the lenses. So yeah, all around good photo. Snapped another one. This one I think I focused more on her. So you see her on the left there. She's in a little better focus. The glasses are a little more blurry, but I did like this first one, the little sun flare up at the top. I think that adds to the photo a little bit, personally. This one, we must have been back to Tyler's house. Or no, we were in the car here. Here's one I shot of her, probably at a stoplight or something. Just had her look over at me, caught her kind of while she's giggling or something. I don't know, just solid driving portrait. Then we got back to Tyler's house, and the fencing in the backyard really caught my eye. It was just a cool fence, really looks handmade, the way it's cut and the tops are all uneven. I just really love stuff like that. And the nails, they're all painted over white, but you can still see them popping out a little bit. And then just this one vine growing through the fence, I thought really added to the photo and was really cool. So I shot these again for the pattern photos that I shoot. I thought this would be a good one to add to that series of photos that I've been taking. Took a little wider shot here without the vine coming through, just a wider shot of the boards, a couple of these. So there's this one where the fencing fills most of the frame, Here's another one. I got a little higher on it and tried to make the front boards cover about 2/3 of the frame, you know, rule of thirds. I went a little higher on this one so you could see over the fence because there was another fence similar behind it. And I just think that was cool to have one behind it out of focus that's, you know, somewhat similar and uneven like that. Here's the shot. Janina wanted to try out my fancy new camera. She's been making fun of me for carrying around all day because it's so big and bulky, but I let her snap a shot of me and came up pretty good. I like it that it's nice and dark and just the light coming in the window there. It's a great shot. And of course, naturally, then I took the camera from her, snapped a photo of her sitting on the edge of the bed. And then it was afternoon by this point, so of course we started drinking whiskey on the lawn. We were sipping on this and the dudes decided to take in the sun. Maybe they fell asleep a little bit here, but I got a solid photo of them laid out on the lawn. Then I decided to get some close-up shots of the bottle. This one looks like I missed focus a little bit. If you see the label on the top neck of the bottle, that looks like it's in focus, but the rest of it kind of missed the focus a little bit. But the grass looks in focus and you see the contrast here. Looks pretty great. Just wish the front of the label was in focus. So then I did a little backlit. Again, I'm just testing this camera out, just the camera and the lens and the film all at once, just to push the limits, see what it does in different situations. I wanted to shoot this bottle backlit, so I placed it directly at the sun and got up real close on it. This one nailed the focus, looks a lot better, and just a good backlit photo of this bottle of whiskey. Russell's. If you're looking to sponsor any photographers or any videos, if you need someone to test any product or just want to send out some samples to get some solid photographs back, which I would gladly do, be in touch. You know where to find me. And then one more shot. This is actually probably the best of the bottle shots that I did, and this is actually the last photo on the roll where I think it's a better photo. You get that wider shot. I think it adds a little more, so definitely nailed the focus on this one. Exposure looks a little better, a little brighter on this one, and just an all-around great photo. This one I may tilt a little bit when I crop it to even it out if I was gonna do anything with it. Definitely happy with this photo and most of the photos on this roll. After shooting this roll, I definitely want to shoot this film again through this camera again and try it out in more lighting situations and just see how it reacts. Pan F may be my new kind of go-to black and white film. I absolutely love it. I love a slower film. After shooting this, I got really excited. Andre from the Negative Positives podcast, if you listen to that, you know he works for Cinestill. He gifted me a roll of the Cinestill 50D. That's also a 50 ISO film. I'm super excited to try that out. So maybe when I do, I'll make another one of these videos on that roll of film, see how that goes in color with the slow ISO of 50. So yeah, that just about wraps it up here, guys. Let me know what you thought of these photos. Which one was your favorite? Have you shot Pan F before? Have you shot the Leica R8? What lens are you shooting on it, if so? What are your thoughts in general on these photos? The contrast, you know, the focus. Do you like that I was able to do, you know, a wide open aperture in daylight? So yeah, let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're not already, be sure to subscribe to my channel, share it with a friend if they're into photography, especially analog photography. And thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.